So people, when they get angry, you might be a frail little being, a tiny little being in the middle of other grown-up. But when you get upset and angry and make a tantrum, you become much bigger, and everybody becomes silent, and you feel so powerful, you feel so strong. So I think there's this kind of adrenaline, flowing through you, and you can get high on being angry. And I think it's kind of addictive, you feel powerful. So many people that get upset, they think there's nothing wrong with being upset. They excuse themselves. They have all these reasons why it's justified to be angry, to be upset. As self-defense or self-righteousness. So it reinforces the ego. So usually in the development of patience, you go through 3 phases. So often when people get angry, they justify it why they got angry. So the first stage is, you have 3 stages. You are able to refrain yourself before getting angry, or you're able, while you're angry, to realize that you're angry and that it's not good. So you are able to shorten the time you're angry. Or afterwards, when the anger has subsided, you say, oh, that was wrong to get angry. I'm sorry, I got upset. So for people which don't know anything about anger, its shortcomings, so they get upset and they justify it. So when one hears about the drawback of getting upset, how it destroy our karma, destroy our peace of mind, take away our happiness and hurt others, and destroy the qualities we have developed in our minds. So by thinking about these shortcomings, you kind of regret of getting upset. So that's where it starts, right? You, instead of justifying it, you say, oh, it was wrong. I got upset, I'm sorry. So you try to repair the damage that your anger caused. Then the next stage, by training further, you're able, while you're angry, you realize I shouldn't have got angry. No, it's harmful. So you're able to shorten the amount of time, the length of you being upset. And then an advanced practitioner, before he gets upset, he sees that his mind is thinking about something or reacting to some event, and he sees that the anger starts boiling up in his mind. So he realizes, oh, I'm about to get angry, and he's able to stop it. So, for example, Atisha, he had 2 cooks, which were, difficult people, know. And his main disciple, Dromtonpa, asked him, why do you keep these two cooks? You know, they're troublemaker. You know, they just make everybody upset. They create problem to you. Why do you keep them as cooks? Well, they are my teacher of patience. You know, I need them to develop my patience, to perfect my patience. So he kept these two obnoxious cooks around him. You know? So for us, that's it. You see, you have really to think about if you want to develop patience. So one person asked this morning how you cultivate patience. So you have to reflect on the shortcoming of anger and the benefit of patience again and again till you're convinced, you know, that anger is never a solution. Like Shantideva says, if there's a solution to the problem, I get upset. And if there's no solution, there's no benefit in getting upset. Being upset harms me and harms others. And then when problem arises, before you start getting upset, you stop yourself. You say, oh no, I'm not going to answer to this problem with being angry. So if I can speak calmly and resolve the problem, I'll do. Otherwise, I go for a walk. Or I say, look, we talk later. Now I'm not in a state of mind to discuss it. So basically, it starts, you need a lot of mindfulness of your state of mind, or the state of mind that are about to appear, about to come forth. So it's not easy. So the key is really to reflect on the shortcoming of anger, the advantage of patience, and then catch yourself before you get upset. Or you go to a situation, you know, like I described, going to visit some relative that usually trigger, you know, your mind getting upset. So you prepare your mind before entering. Oh, that person, oh, I'm going to visit that difficult person. And she is able to trigger my mind getting upset. So I will try my best not to get upset, you know, and I will think about, you know, why I'm going to see her, because, you know, she's my mother or my aunt or my grandma, and, you know, and I'll try to help her no matter what, you know, no matter what she says or does, you know, I'll try to remain calm. So you prepare yourself before entering the situation. And then if you like, on your meditation cushion, you can make a rehearsal, or you imagine going to see the person, and you imagine that person saying something that hurts you, and you imagine not reacting with anger. And then if you get upset in a situation, then later on, you know, in the evening or next day, you think over it. How come that I got upset in that situation? What was the evolution? You know, I was calm before, and then I meet that person or I saw that thing, and it make me upset. So how could I be in that situation without getting upset? So you think over it and you try to develop a strategy. You know, if that situation happens again, I won't get upset. Then the next mental affliction that is very difficult to give up is one's attachment. You know, sometimes we use the term desire, but in Tibetan you have two desire. So you have desire that is valid and you have the desire that is an affliction. So when one says that one has to reduce one's desire or one's attachment, it means the desire that is an affliction. So the desire to benefit others, the desire to reach enlightenment, you know. So that's a valid desire. It's not the desire that is an affliction. So basically it's one's attachment, you know, to sense pleasure. So the thing is, there's nothing wrong with sense pleasure. The problem is when one gets attached to it. You see, there's a big difference between enjoying sense pleasure and it doesn't leave any trace in your mind. You just enjoy the moment. You don't cling to it. You don't want it to last longer. You don't want it to be repeated again and again. You just enjoy the present moment. So there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is then when you cling, so you don't live in that open space. And it's that clinging that causes us to be reborn. It's one's attachment, one's desire for worldly pleasure, that craving that binds us to cyclic existence. So if we can enjoy the pleasures of life, you know, without any clinging, then that's completely okay. The enlightened beings, they enjoy pleasures, but there's no clinging at all. Whereas us, you see, attachment is described as oil put on a piece of fabric. It's very difficult to separate the oil from the fabric. So anger is like dirt on a piece of fabric. You see, you can wash it off, and then so anger can easily be removed from the mind. But attachment sticks. You see, you have a pleasure and you want to repeat it again and again. You enjoy chocolate and you want to have chocolate again. And then you have chocolate again and you want to have it again. So you never have enough chocolate. And the more you eat, the stronger the attachment becomes. And the more difficult it is to remove that mind of attachment. So attachment can happen to any object of the six senses. It can be to any visual form, to any sound, any smell, any taste, any touch, and any mental concept, idea. So there's no object that cannot be a support for one's attachment. So we are always in contact with the object that can produce attachment. So, you see, you enjoy a pleasure, a piece of chocolate, you can bliss out on a piece of chocolate and then move on, and it leaves no trace in your mind. Or you can eat a piece of chocolate and you attach to it, and you cannot let go of that experience of the piece of chocolate. And you will be unhappy until you experience that piece of chocolate again. There will be something missing in you as long as you don't have the piece of chocolate. So that's attachment. And it can be to a person, to an object, to a house, to anything. And then the mind that is attached to possessions, you see, after a while, one is bored with that object and then wants something new, something more exciting. And then when one gets that one, after a while, again, one becomes unsatisfied and wants something more, something different. So the mind of craving is always dissatisfied. So a mind that is free from desire and attachment, that freedom is real happiness. The mind that experiences contentment with whatever he or she has, that contentment is a happy mind. So one has to realize the difference between not having attachment and experiencing that peace of mind. And when the mind of attachment, craving arise, you see how the mind becomes unhappy when the mind of desire, craving arise. When the mind of desire, attachment is there, there's something missing in the mind. Before, you had happiness, you were at peace, contentment, you didn't need anything. And then when the mind of desire arises, the mind of craving for anything or anybody, then there's something missing. And that missing mind will be there until you let go of the desire or until you have the person or the object you were craving for. And then because the object and the person that you crave or attach to are impermanent, the relationship always changes. So it's not something static, permanent. And then the pleasure that the object, the person produce also diminishes. So then one needs a new object, a new relationship, a new situation. And then when one dies, that imprint of attachment, that imprint of wanting sensual experience, sensory experience, that's what drives us back to take rebirth. So an arhat has no craving at all, no grasping at all. So he or she is completely free. Whereas we have this imprint of attachment that we cannot let go. So even though we don't have the body anymore, we end up in that space. But the imprint of the objects of pleasure, the people we are attached to, so all this makes us come back. So that's why we call this the desire realm. There's nobody that forces us to come back, to take rebirth. We come willingly. You see, in the bardo, there's no Starbucks, there's no coffee. So in order to enjoy coffee, you have to come back. It sounds silly, but actually it's exactly like that. We don't realize how many attachment we have to people, children, parents, house, car, lifestyle. So all these things, these are our bundle of attachments. So unless we can go of the mind of attachment, we will be bound to cyclic existence. So there's no arhats with attachment. There's no Buddha with attachments. And how they became who they are is by letting go of their attachments. So it's difficult because attachment pervades our life. Because any object, any person can be an object of attachment. So when one realizes how attachment makes us unhappy, so if one is attached to a person, you see, one misses the person. And then not only that, but then one wants, because we like certain aspect of the person, then we would like that person to be in a certain way with us, to make us happy in this and that way. So we don't love that person freely. We would like that person to be the way we like her or him to be. So one's attachment doesn't make the situation open. No, we have expectation. Our mind of attachment has expectation. And then we don't enjoy the person as he or she is. We would like him or her to be in a certain way. And that mind that wants to control the other person is uncomfortable to the other person, because the other person cannot be who he or she is. So love is wishing the other person to be happy. The Buddhist definition of love. So you let the other person to be how he or she is, and you love her or him the way he or she is. So there's a big difference between love and attachment, love and craving. So the more one has craving, attachment, obsession, for a person or an object, the more one becomes needy, controlling. And that mind is very uncomfortable for oneself. We are not happy. Because in order to be happy, we have to control that object or that person to be exactly the way we fantasize it to be. So we are not happy, and we make the other people around us unhappy, uncomfortable, because we don't let them be the way they are. And then with objects, you see, when we get a new toy or a new clothes, at the beginning they produce us pleasure, but very soon they don't produce any pleasure anymore. So we need a new exciting object, and we go shopping for this and that. To have that thrill or that excitement, to get a new thing. But it's very fleeting, it doesn't last long. So when one looks into this deeply, one tries to let go of the mind of attachment, because it hurts oneself and it hurts others. So one tries to develop contentment, a mind that is happy with whatever the situation, and doesn't crave for more new things. So the mind of contentment is just happy with how the situation is, doesn't need something new, something different, and has love and compassion and understanding. So it's interesting and challenging, you see, when you take a new object into your life, check well, would that increase my attachments? Would that increase my desire? Or can I just enjoy that object freely? And then with one's relationship with people, you see, can I enjoy these friends, these relatives with a free mind? Or does my mind of attachment, desire, want to control, want to impose one's view? So to remove completely attachment, actually you need to realize emptiness. You see, the one that wants things, whether you call it the ego, the inherent I, dominant I, you know, that thing, that emotion that wants is produced by this mistaken sense of self. The real self, the merely labeled I, doesn't need anything, doesn't want anything. So on the path of accumulation, one of the job is to not take new object of attachment, not to create new attachments in one's mind, and to reduce the attachment we already have. To reduce the anger we already have and not create new angers. So one assess the level of one's mental affliction and try to reduce the affliction we already have by applying the antidotes, and try not to generate new object of affliction, not develop new affliction to new object or to new person. Because the definition of a mental affliction is that something that comes that in your mind and destroys your peace. A mind that was content becomes uncontent by the presence of a mental affliction. So the mind of attachment, craving, is never a happy mind. And then whatever you say or do under the mind of desire, attachment, becomes a non-virtue. And whatever you try to do to reduce your attachment, your craving, whatever you do to develop contentment, that's virtuous. So that's easy for a monk to say. There's something else when you're in a romantic relationship, right? You know, there's passion, there's attachment, there's desire. So there is you're completely in the middle of desire attachment. So there's also love, there's also compassion, but there's also these negative emotion of craving, grasping, and so forth. So the trick there is try to increase the love, compassion and the contentment, and to reduce the mind of control, attachment, desire, and so forth. So in Tome Sampo's 37 practice of Bodhisattva, I think the first practice is to leave home, to run away, because it's a nest full of attachment, right? So if you want to control your mind, if you're weak, the best way is to go away, you know. But for most of us, we cannot do that. So while being in the situation, we have to become aware and try to work on it, you know, while having our partner, having our children, having our parents, you know, while being in the middle of it, work on our mind and reduce the attachment and increase the love. And then when one takes on new object in one's life, you know, a new computer, new phone, new car, you know, instead of taking the shiniest object, if one cannot prevent the mind of attachment from manifesting, one takes a little bit less shiny object. So then if the car has a scratch or something, you know, we are not upset. So the best object to have around, to surround oneself with, is object that you're not attached to. So even though Lama Zopa Rinpoche had, you know, his, how would I describe, his Vajra palaces, you know, with countless beautiful objects, statues, tanka, carpet, and things like that. You know. He said, you know, I have all these things, but I'm not attached to the slightest little thing. So whether somebody is free or not doesn't depend on how many things he or she possesses. So you can be quite rich and have a lot of possessions, or even have a partner, children, extensive family, but you're not attached to anything. So that was like Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So he had all these things in his life, but he wasn't attached. So he says it doesn't matter how much things you have. What matters is whether you're attached to it or not. So if you're not attached to all these things, you have contentment, you have peace of mind. And if things go away, you're okay. So it's not, the problem is not the object and the people, the problem is our attachment. So at the beginning, you see when the mind is weak and doesn't know how to handle desire, attachment, you know, when any object of pleasure produces attachment, then the solution is to go away from object of that can produce attachment, right? So that's how you become a monk or a hermit in the mountain, right? You flee away from the object that can produce attachment because you're not able to handle it. Then when you're a little bit stronger, then you use the mind of attachment, right? So whenever you have attachment, you imagine freeing other people. You see, you experience attachment to your partner, to your children, you know. So by myself suffering from attachment, may I free all other beings from their attachment. May everybody experience contentment, happiness. So you use your mind of attachment to free other beings from their attachment and thereby increase your love and compassion. So you use your attachment as a mind training to develop love, compassion, and bodhicitta. So that's how one practices when one's mind is a little bit more developed. So in the middle of attachment, you free other beings from their attachment by yourself experiencing attachment. And you give them contentment, love, compassion, bodhicitta. And then when you're even more developed than that, so you experience pleasure as bliss and emptiness. So your object of desire, object of attachment, your partner, children, house, car, you try to see everything as bliss. So you enhance the pleasure, but you see it as empty, as a senseless. So you use the pleasure to become free. So in Buddhism, there's different strategy with dealing with the mental affliction. So the first way is to move away and to try to control it by not being in contact with the object. Then when you become a little bit more power in your mind, more strength, while experiencing the problem, you use them. While experiencing the affliction, you use them to become free from the affliction and to free others from the affliction, their afflictions. And then later on, you see all the afflictions as a senseless, in nature of bliss, emptiness. And you become free of them while experiencing them. So one has really to be honest with one's mind. And usually one starts at the beginning. One tries to reduce the intensity of the afflictions because they're just too powerful for us to handle them. So we try to reduce them. And then once they're at the level where we can handle them, we meditate on thought training, So by myself being angry, I take the anger of all beings upon me. May everybody be free of their anger, including myself. So I, the person that is angry, anger itself, and the person towards whom I'm angry, are empty. So one uses one's mental affliction to develop love, compassion, bodhicitta, and to realize emptiness. So that's the Mahayana path. And then in Vajrayana, so one tries to see everything as bliss, in the nature of great bliss, and that great bliss focuses on emptiness. So for example, in Yamantaka, you use the mind of anger, right? So you enhance your anger. In meditation, you manifest yourself as a very wrathful person. And that mind of wrath or anger is very sharp, is very clear. And you use that clarity of your mind to realize that there's no I, no situation and no people that exist from their own side. So you use the sharp mind of anger to realize emptiness. and thereby become free of the anger. So anger is a very clear mind, very sharp mind, but usually it's oriented by only seeing the mistake in the person, the mistake of the situation. Whereas here you enhance the mind of wrath, anger, wrath, you see, and that makes your mind very sharp. And then you use that sharpness of the mind to look for the ego, the inherent I. So that clear, sharp mind, you use it to overcome the root of cyclic existence. So same thing with attachment, right? At the beginning, you go away from the object of attachment because you cannot handle them. The more you're in contact, the greater the attachment. And then later on, you know, when you have a little bit more control over your mind, say, okay, my attachment is bad. It makes me unhappy. It makes me controlling other. I'm not happy as long as I don't have my object of pleasure. So as I suffer like that, all beings suffer like that. So by myself suffering from attachment, may I take all the other people's attachment upon me. May I free them from the attachment with compassion. And may I give to them the contentment, the happiness of the mind without attachment. So that's using attachment to train in love, compassion, and bodhicitta. And then you meditate on who's the I that has attachment? Where's the attachment? What am I attached to? And there you use the mind of attachment to realize emptiness. And then later on, you know, when one is quite proficient, so one uses the mind of attachment in the sense that any object of attachment, any experience of attachment, you imagine as bliss. You know, even the attachment to sexual intercourse, you see, even the attachment of orgasm, you see, you use that mind to produce bliss and then use that blissful awareness to realize emptiness. And by realizing emptiness of the mind of desire, attachment, or orgasmic energy, you become free. So you use the delusion to realize that there is no I, no object, and no attachment, and thereby become free. So any sense object, you imagine in a nature of bliss, emptiness. So cup of tea, bliss, emptiness. Beautiful sunshine, bliss, emptiness. Beautiful park, bliss, emptiness. Beautiful children, bliss, emptiness. Beautiful partner, bliss, emptiness. Beautiful flower, bliss, emptiness. Beautiful car, bliss, emptiness. So everything your sense consciousness touches, you imagine as bliss and emptiness. And thereby your mind becomes free. So in Buddhism, there's 3 ways to deal with our negative emotion, you see. So at the beginning, one withdraws from them because one cannot handle. And in the middle, one uses them as thought training to realize emptiness and bodhicitta. And at the end, one just sees them as a senseless bliss. So of course we would like all to be the great advanced practitioner, that see everything as senseless bliss. But that's difficult. You see, it needs quite a long training to be able to do that. One needs a lot of guru devotion, a lot of purification, accumulation merit, training in the generation stage, training in the completion stage, till our mind is, how to say, sharp enough, intelligent enough to use pleasure, to use anger as a path. So it says, you see, let's say, if one does tantric practice, with a partner, so if one hasn't reached a very high level, on the state of completion, the isolated body, speech, so if one is close to the isolated mind, that's the level where you encourage to practice with a tantric partner, to open your heart chakra and to experience the most subtle mind of clear light. But if one were to practice before that level, one would just increase one's samsara, one's attachment. Because the mind is not yet powerful enough to experience pleasure with the realization of emptiness. So instead of becoming a path to liberation, it becomes a path of cyclic existence. Okay, any questions about that? Or any comment?
Go ahead, Teresa.
Can you give me the...
Hi, Venerable René. So happy to be with you. I'm on Zoom. I have my camera off because I'm at Shasta's house up above Vajrapani and my internet isn't good. I always have this question continually. I think you explained it really well, but maybe you could say a little bit more about, for me particularly, it's fear, using fear as using fear on the path.
Well, so the first level, right, would be to get away from the object of fear, right? So if it's a person that produces fear in you, somebody you live with, or some, or a situation or a country where you have fear. So the first level is to get away from, the situation that produces fear in your mind, right? And thereby the fear gets reduced and eliminated, right? And then the second level is basically, while you experience fear, you take upon you all the fear of other people. Also people in Gaza, in Ukraine, So you imagine all these people that had fear, fear of being killed, of being tortured, or fear of their husband beating them up, or harming the children. So there's so many situations where there's fear in the world, right? So by yourself experiencing fear, you take upon yourself, out of love and compassion, the fear of all these beings. So you use your fear to develop love and compassion towards the people that have fear. And you aspire to become Buddha for their sake. And then from an ultimate point of view, so you check who has fear. Is it the body that fear? Is the mind that has fear? Is the I that has fear? Where is this I that has fear? And where is fear? What is fear? What is its essence? And how is the situation out there that produces fear? Is it self-existent? Does it exist objectively? So you realize also it's empty, it's merely labeled by mind. It doesn't exist as something solid as it appeared to you. So like that you use fear to remove, you see, to realize its emptiness. And then you use it to develop love, compassion, and bodhicitta. And then in Tantra, same, you see fear as bliss. And that blissful mind, realizes emptiness.
So helpful. Thank you so very much.
So I think one has to really to chew over, you see, how to say, it's really like Lama Yeshe said, you have to be your own psychotherapist. You have really to be, to accept, how to say, a psychotherapist, so you're the patient and the psychotherapist looks very wisely at very honestly, very wisely at the person, at the situation, and use the wisdom, to help. So we have to be able to be the person with its affliction, the problem, but at the same time we have to be able to watch at oneself, one situation, with that wisdom, with that detached wisdom that is able to use Buddha's teaching as so to become the wisdom person, using the the Buddha's teaching to diagnosis, to diagnose, one's sickness, one's problem, and then try to apply the right antidote that is appropriate to our situation, So it's difficult, it's not easy, but that's how, with time, one becomes more clever or more wise, in how to apply the teaching to one's own situation. Yeah.
I just want to clarify. I think you said attachment is a mind that misses the object when it's not there, and craving is when you want it again and again. Is that correct? Or
No, attachment is a mind that doesn't let go of the object. It holds on to it. The mind of attachment, is like glue, that holds on to the object. And then the mind of craving is that so you have the memory, so you don't have anymore the object of attachment, but you crave to repeat that experience.
so they go together then.
Oh yes.
The attachment is when you're experiencing the object, and the
Yes.
craving is when there's an absence of the object.
Yes, and you have the memory of that object, of that experience, and you want to repeat it.
Okay. Thank you.
Venerable, you probably mentioned this, and maybe I missed it. And I did a DB class, but I think I'm forgetting it. I'm trying to understand why do we say attachment makes us remain in this cyclic existence? So is my thinking correct? Because we are saying because of the attachment, we are clinging to the things, we want to keep on getting the same experiences. So we are never satisfied, which causes suffering of change, constant suffering. And in the process, we may end up creating bad karma. And that's why we are stuck in the cyclic existence. Is that the thread of reasoning? Or am I missing something?
So if you want to go back to the root cause, because there's attachment to an illusory sense of self that doesn't exist, we believe we are self that we are not. We believe in this inherent sense of I that is somewhere within our body-mind, right? And this illusory sense of I that doesn't exist in reality, but that we believe we are. So when that self, that sense of I experiences pleasure, that sense of I gets attached to the pleasure, right? Produced by person, by situation, object, right? So this illusory sense of I experience pleasure and produce attachment and desire to repeat this pleasurable situation. And then that sense of I that is illusory, that doesn't exist, when it experiences problem, he has aversion. Aversion to pain, aversion to people that harm, aversion, to anything that threatens this sense of I, right? So this illusory I that doesn't exist has this emotion of attraction and aversion. If there wasn't this illusory sense of I, the same situation wouldn't produce attachment, anger, but because of our attachment to this illusion of an I, these emotions are produced, right? And then this emotion produce us to act under the control of this desire, attachment, and this aversion, right? So whatever action this illusory sense of I does under the control of attraction and aversion produce negative karma, right? And that negative karma result in suffering result, right? So now when you pass away, you die, if you haven't eliminated this illusory sense of self. So around this illusory self, you have all your memory, all your habit, all your propensities. So your sense of I has no body anymore, but the emotions, the habit, the imprints are still there with you, right? So if you're only attached to space of consciousness, you're a great meditator and you have shamatha and you enjoy experiencing this space of consciousness or infinite space, infinite consciousness. So you're attached to that. So you're born in a formless realm, right? And then if you're a lot of good karma, being very virtuous, and then you're attached to form, but still attached to form. So you're born in a form realm, or in the gods of the form realm, the gods of the desire realm, right? Because you have so much merit, right? But if you're ordinary beings like us, you see, so you end up in the bardo and you have your mind of attachment to people and so forth. So that mind of attachment makes you take born again from parents to be able to enjoy this level of reality. So it's a very nice story. I don't know whether you remember, most of you must remember that story of, at the time of Buddha, he had two main disciples, Shariputra and Modgalyana. Right? So one was very good in organizing the Sangha. I think that was Shariputra. And then Modgalyana was very good in psychic power. He had great clairvoyance. So he could see past life, future life, and things like that. So one time, so he was elderly and he was walking down the road with his youngling disciple, you know. And so he passed by a couple by the side of the road and started laughing, you know, he's cracking off laughing. I said, Samsa is so silly, you know. And then his student, what are you saying? You know, what's going on? And he said, oh, look, you see that couple there by the side of the road? You know, the mom is having a child, you know, and the husband is cooking fish, you know, and he offers the bone of the fish to the dog, right? So he said, what's so funny about that, right? And he said, well, you know, so with my clairvoyance, I see that the child that the wife had was her ex-lover. So she was born as that child because she was attached to her, right? So he was born as her child. And her husband had killed her lover. So he had killed, you know, the lover that was born as her son, as his son. You know, so his enemy was his son, right? And then the father he liked to go fishing, right? So he was born as a fish, as a consequence of fishing. He was born as a fish, and then the wife was born as a dog. So the mother was eating her husband, right? So like that, he said, look, samsara is just a big joke, you know. We're constantly born in all these different situations, right? So out of attachment, basically. So why did this come back, right? So the mom and the father. The father, I'm not sure whether he was born as a fish because of attachment to the. No, but the mom, she was attached to her son, so he was born as her dog, right? And then the lover was born as the son, right? Because of attachment, you see, you're attached to the person, so you want to experience the experience as before, but it doesn't really fit together, right? So you're not really born, you know, there's some mistake happening in the... But yeah, so because you attach, you become close to them, but not necessarily in the situation you would like, right? If you don't have the complete karma. Right? But it's that mind of attachment, Maisie, that makes us come back, right?
Very clear. Thank you so much.
I don't know whether it's clear, but
Still helps.
It gives us an idea, right? Of
I have a question along the lines of the karma and past lives. Is that just the practice of seeing all beings as my mothers is challenging, especially to see like some people as my mother. Like I feel like I have resistance to see some people as my mother than others. So I guess that's my question is.
So you think it's difficult for you to see Trump as your mother? As your dear loving mother. But you don't know the circumstance a million life ago. That's a long time, right? You might be a male, he might be a female, you know, and she might have been a gorgeous woman and you fell in love with her as a male, you know? Yes. So, yeah. So, you know, you were a little baby from her, right? She was your loving mother, giving birth to you, going through much pain, you know, much suffering while you were in her womb, and then he gave birth to you, you know. Trump gave birth to you. You know, it's going too much pain and then looking for you as a child and bringing you up, you know. So, and they say, you know, he hasn't been your mother only once, but hundreds of times. Yeah. So it says each being has been our mother hundreds of times. You know, not only Trump, everyone, you know. Why? Because, you see, we never really think about what means beginningless lives. That's a hell of a lot of time. You know, that's a lot of life, beginningless. You know? So samsara is not a joke, you know, it's beginningless. It has no beginning. You know? So during that time, we had all the different types of life within the sixth realm. You know, we went round and round and round and round again and again. You know, so if you really reflect on the suffering of cyclic existence, we are really in a deep caca. You know, our situation is not fun, actually. You know, so and unless you see, for example, in Hinduism, we have this idea after the Kali Yuga comes, you know, what was the four yuga? Okay, so it turns, right? So you go to the God realm, then it goes down again, and then you go up again, and things like that, right? So, but there's also the belief that there is a gradual evolution of the soul returning to God, right? Whereas in Buddhism, it's not like that at all, you know? You go round and round and round. There's no gradual evolution of the soul, you know? You just repeat the things again and again, unless you make the effort yourself to become free. So the Buddha cannot free you, you know? They can only show you the state of freedom they have reached, and they can induce you and choose you and choose you. Encourage you, it's easier. Enthuse you to follow the path and reach the state of enlightenment, right? So that's what we do here, right? We try, you know, to follow the path and gradually free ourselves.
Can I ask just more specific practice, right? Like if I just acknowledge that that feeling, there's a resistance to imagining Trump as my mother, should I still contriving and fake it? Or knowing that there is a resistance there? Or should I just say, okay, maybe imagining Trump's daughter instead? Or like just try to kind of move towards that direction? What would be your suggestion?
You see, there's another difficulty, is that we don't remember the love and the suffering and the renunciation that our mom has had for us. You know, we were too small, we don't remember all what she sacrificed for us, right? She might have sacrificed her career, her hobby, going out with friends. No, we don't remember all what she went through for us. We were too small. But we can see we might have done that for our children, or we might have done that, we have seen that our brother, sister doing for their children, or our friends doing that for their children. Right? So we put ourselves in the shoes of those children and imagine us having received that love, that care, that renunciation from those persons for me. So you try to feel, oh yes, you know, that person has done that for me, right? So to feel I have been the recipient of so much love and care, right? So because normally in life we think, yeah, people are not related to us, right? So to be able to feel, you see, yeah, like you see, for example, you go to Asia and you see the child, the mom with so much love breastfeeding the child in the street at the foot of a tree and things like that. And then she has to go to work in the rice field. So she puts the baby on her back and the whole day, she works. And from time to time, she brings the baby in front and feed him and, make him happy. Then she makes the massage on the sun, with oil, massage the feet, the limbs and the head, with so much love and giggle and, playing. You see that the mom really is happy to have the child and try to make him happy or her happy, right? So you imagine, I've been the recipient of that love, that situation, I have experienced it myself. And then you imagine having experienced that with all living beings. All living beings have been in that kind situation towards oneself. And like that, gradually, it really opens your heart, that I have been the recipient of so much love. And then the wish to repay that love, that kindness comes, can naturally. So the more you reflect on how much love and care you have received, the more your love and compassion will grow. So now another way to say, okay, you're not sure that Trump has been your mom, right? But can you be 100% sure that he has never been your mom? We cannot, right? So we cannot point to any being and say, that person definitely has never been my mom, because we don't know, right? With beginningless life, we simply don't know, So at some point, that person that's awful now might have been a very loving person, very kind person, because infinite life, we really change a lot, right? So yes, it's difficult. I agree, it's difficult. It takes mind training, right? But by starting with easy people, gradually we're able to do that with more difficult person. That's why the Tibetan, they say, all model sentient beings, because they meditate on the fact that all beings have been really kind to, and the example of the kindest person to oneself is our mom. She gave us this body. If we have the chance of a precious human life now to meet the Dharma, is because she gave us this body and brought us up, right? If you hear story, awful story in the news, the mom gives birth and puts it in a plastic bag and in the rubbish bin, or gives birth and kill the baby and puts, strangle it and put in a suitcase, So our mom hasn't done that. Otherwise we wouldn't be here, right? So due to the kindness of our mom, we are, here and able to enjoy this precious human life. And practice the Dharma, and maybe due to kindness, we can reach liberation and enlightenment, even in this very life, So she's so precious, so kind. So thinking along those lines, right? And then one repeats that with the second person, third person, and gradually we'll try to imagine beginningless lives. So we cannot say any person, that person definitely has not been our mom. And then the Buddha, with his omniscient mind, says, yeah, all beings have been our mother, not only once, but many times. So I cannot compete with the omniscient mind, So, and if he says that, you see, why would he say that, if it's not true? Or it's a skillful mean, for us to develop love, compassion for all beings. And that's fair also, It's a means to an end, right? So for me, it doesn't really matter whether it's true or not. I just see it's a positive way of thinking to develop love, compassion for all beings. So I don't care whether it's actually true or not. I just see it as skillful for me to develop my mind. Yeah. Anything else?
I'm not sure how to ask this, but I think from the tradition that I was raised in and different teachers, contemplation was very much on Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path. So one of the things with objects of attachment is to think of the four aspects of the First Noble Truth, right?
Yes.
So even sometimes driving and playing music and it's light out, then I'll just say anicca dukkha anatta, impermanent, in the nature of suffering, selfless, and then things can become much more unstable.
Yes.
It's helpful for my mind, but it's totally different than bliss and emptiness. Could you speak to that? Because it does have a calming nature for excited or negative.
Well, in the Theravada tradition, or Pali tradition, the aim is to reach liberation, right? So you contemplate on impermanence. The object of pleasure are by nature impermanent, and because they're impermanent, they lead to suffering, right? They're not lasting, right? So it produces suffering. And then then in order to become free, one meditates on the selflessness of person, and on the emptiness of all phenomena, right? The emptiness of the situation. So one focusing on impermanence, for example, the impermanence of the body is unsatisfactory in nature, and then that there's no self in the body, and that the body doesn't belong to a self, and thereby one becomes free. So, but you see, the whole thing is oriented towards liberation. Is not geared towards the Mahayana path, right? So it's not geared to develop love, compassion, bodhicitta, and wishing to become enlightenment for the sake of all beings. Right? So the psychology is a little bit different. It's geared towards liberation. Whereas in the Mahayana, it's geared towards developing bodhicitta, and realizing emptiness of all phenomena, right? So in the Mahayana, one uses the affliction or the suffering to use that to develop love, compassion, and bodhicitta, because it's a cornerstone of the Mahayana path. Right? So the emptiness would be the same as in the Hinayana, right? But what's different is the bodhicitta aspect, right? So here one uses that, by myself having the suffering, when nobody else has that suffering. May I free all beings from their suffering, like that.
It seems that there are multiple pathways, whether we use anger and attachment as an object to develop compassion, or that we negate the I to have a deeper understanding of emptiness and meditate on that, and our work towards bodhicitta. Or that we use a tantric partner to explore that space that opens up. Could you talk a little bit more about what you mean, that space? Because if we're using anger and attachment to help better our compassion, something opens up.
Yes.
If we negate the I to understand emptiness, and on our way to develop bodhicitta, something also opens up.
Sure.
Is this space only in the relative state, or are we on our way and closer to the ultimate truth?
Ooh la la. How I'm gonna answer that?
I feel like you really know that space, and that since
Well, there's
wait.
there's many spaces.
That's a
right?
judgment. I feel like I'm sensing experientially when you talk about space, there is something there, and I just want to get a glimpse of that because I'm such a beginner of a beginner of a beginner in every aspect of the Dharma and also meditation. And would like to understand that just to get ahead a little bit.
You see, honestly, I think you mix up many things together and you make a soup. You know, it's very nice. You know, but you know, you mix up things. You know, so it's not yet clear. You know, things. So yeah, you mix too many things together. So it needs to be separate and then looked at it individually. You know, so it's difficult for me to answer in any way that will make your mind clearer. So you have to just focus on one question, one part, and you leave the rest apart. Then I can address that issue. Because the way you mix it up, I'm paralyzed.
Okay. May I clarify what I
Yes.
mean by space? Just so experientially when I'm meditating,
Yeah.
new to tantric, and I'm looking for the I,
Yes.
and there's a moment that very glimpse that I can't find the I.
Yes.
To me, that is space.
Yes. That's good.
So when you're talking about
So wait a minute. So that space is the absence of the I. Okay? That space, you were looking for the I, you don't find the I. So that space is the non-finding of the I, the first second. But then, if you continue, that space becomes just the conventional nature of the mind. So you have two spaces there. They look the same, but one is the non-finding of the I, and the other one is just the space-like nature of the mind.
because there's still that I that's looking for that the I. There's still a knower, a something looking for that I.
That depends. That's another issue.
Okay.
Let's stay at the first issue. So you look for the I, so the I appear in your mind, and then you look for the I and you don't find the I. So you enter into the space of not finding the I. Okay? It's a non-finding of the I. Okay? How long can you stay there?
Glimpse.
Very few seconds, right? But then if you continue to look there, you are in the space of awareness. Right? You become the space of awareness. Okay? It's also space. Okay? But that's the space of awareness, the clear clarity and awareness, the clear knowing nature of the mind. Right? It's not anymore emptiness. It's just a relative conventional nature of the mind. Okay?
So the other space I was talking about in everyday practicing, including using anger and attachment, or as an antidote to develop compassion. When you do it, whether quantitatively a lot throughout your day or multiple days, or when you're deep into it because you've developed empathy, your mind goes into a space of bliss. There's no you because you have such depth of feeling empathy for that person being angry at you, and so you're using that instead of being angry back, or you have that moment of anger that you want to throw back. You're choosing to use that to develop the compassion. And while you're doing that, there's a detachment there's a glimpse of a space of just bliss or happiness.
Yeah.
And so
that space is just space of mind being pervaded with love or pervaded with compassion. Right? So it's the clear knowing nature of the mind being imbued with love and compassion.
is that the case because you're aware of that or you're feeling the love?
Because you're feeling the love.
Even though that the detachment I'm talking about at that moment is that there's no I there. I'm not there's no me doing that person. It becomes automatic, or what I'm doing at the moment is so deep in the love and the compassion. You kind of you get lost.
Yes.
And there's no attachment there. There's
Yes.
the attachment to me is that there's an I there.
Yeah.
And so when you do it, the compassion is so much that there's no.
You have the manifest I and you have the unmanifest I. So you can be in a state of consciousness like love, compassion, and there's no manifest sense of I. That doesn't mean you have realized that I doesn't exist, right? So you have an experience of an absence of I, but it's not that absence of I that we speak about with emptiness. It simply is not manifestly there. So you don't experience the I at that moment, but you haven't realized its emptiness.
The other space is when you're actively negating the I as you go through your day, right? Because just like in the retreat, you say there's a real you experiencing the real orchid.
Yes.
So there's no attachment there, even though the you is enjoying the orchid, right?
Yeah.
The free you enjoying the free
Yes.
orchid.
But
So there's no sense.
To experience the real you, first you have to realize the emptiness of the wrong you. You know, to be able to experience what's left. So you have to see that this I existing within you, this hallucinated sense of I that we usually experience with, you realize, it's not there. Right? You go into that space of not being there. And then when you come out of that absorption, say, but obviously I exist. So how do I exist? As a mere designation on this body-mind. Slowly, slowly it becomes clear.
It's a basic question, like a beginner question that I have about karma, because sometimes I think about it and I confuse myself of what was the teaching. So we all have our personal karma. So events can happen to us, and we have our reactions or habitual patterns, and all the way we respond to things is our karma, because that's how we kind of trained ourselves, whether it's a good training or a bad training. The question is the events themselves that happen to us. They can be, let's say, natural causes, or people slapping me, or a car crashing into me, or an ant crawling up on me. Are all those events due to my personal karma, or are there other natural laws happening in?
So whatever.
Yeah.
So there are some natural laws, right? But whatever experience of suffering or happiness you experience, this is the result of your karma, regardless of what causes it.
Okay, so the subjective experience, my subjective experience of whatever happens is a result of my karma.
Yes.
But whatever happens
is not necessarily the result of your karma.
Thank you for clarifying. I just want to make sure I understand
So the earth turning around the sun is not necessarily caused by your karma, right? might be collective karma. It might be, what created the universe, the natural law, But whatever happiness you experience by sitting on the sun, that's your karma, right? Yeah. Okay, I think that's enough. So maybe for 5 minutes we just sit. So to resume this weekend, you see our mind is fundamentally pure, our awareness. The mind is clear in the sense that it's completely unobscured. And yet it's conscious, it is aware, it cognizes, it knows. So that mind that realizes its ultimate nature becomes the Dharmakaya, the omniscient mind. So our very mind, if you understand its pure nature, you can become free forever. So that's why some people say, our mind are already Buddha. We simply don't recognize it. We are not able to experience the mind in a naked way. We are not able to experience the mind as it is. And because of that, we have the hallucination of an I, an ego, the hallucination of other people, the hallucination of an outer world. And in that hallucination, some object produces pleasure, another pain. And in that hallucination, we act to get the pleasure and to avoid the pain. And in that hallucination, we create karma. that in that hallucination bounce back on us and produce hallucinated pleasure and hallucinated pain and hallucinated rebirth. So if one could see the mind, the nature of the mind as it is, free from any veil, we could be free. But that's very difficult. So one starts first by controlling one's karma, then controlling one's mental affliction, then developing universal love, compassion, and then try to see the nature of the mind as it is. Because realizing the mind as it is difficult, controlling one's affliction is less difficult. And less difficult than that is controlling one's karma. So one starts with the less difficult task and gradually move to the more difficult one. So if you would be able to see your mind as having no essence, you see, with your mind you watch the mind and there appears to be a mind there. But if you look, where is that mind that you're looking at? If you try to look, does it have a color, a shape? Does it abide somewhere? What's its nature, its essence? So if you stare into your mind like with a microscope and try to find its essence and not finding any, gradually you discover the mind as it is. So whatever positive energy, merit we have created during this weekend, by reflecting on the pure nature of our mind and the gradual path to enlightenment, may these imprint grow in our conscious and subconscious and lead to real insight, and thereby transforming gradually into realization and leading us to become a happier, more peaceful, loving human being. And someday may we reach liberation and enlightenment due to this merit. And may we be able to benefit infinite living beings. And may the mind of love, compassion, bodhicitta, our warm heart that we have not yet generated, because our mind is like a rock. May we develop that mind of love, compassion, bodhicitta, and may the mind of love, compassion, bodhicitta that we have already generated, that warm heart of loving kindness, of caring for others, may that mind never degenerates, but increase more and more till we fully enlightened. Thank you very much for coming this weekend, and I wish you a blossoming of inner realizations.